Hey everyone, Fox 44 Sports Director Parker Rehm here, and we got a special guest on Baylor's campus, Doug McNamee, Athletic Director. It's been 2 months now, fully into the job. I guess that can be where we start. How's that been going so far, and how have you adjusted to this new role, managing athletics across Baylor?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest probably complaint is just hours in the day. You know, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of people to see, a lot of coaches to get to, a lot of student athletes, and then you're right in the heart of our competition season for the spring. So I want to try to be as present at those as I possibly can, get to road games where I can. So biggest challenge for me has just been hours in the day. The energy, you know, the excitement, the blessing of getting to do this job is there. It's just, you know, how much can you get to in one set day?
Yeah, has that set in at all? How long did it take to set in that you were in this position and got the opportunity to help lead Baylor into this new era?
I mean, everything that you do new is kind of a special moment. You know, it's a milestone moment. I have said, you know, this. I've used the word surreal a lot, but I've also said of late that the "sur" part of it's starting to fall off, and it's just real now. Yeah. But that's to be expected. But yeah, I mean, every moment. I mean, you get the Big 12 tournament coming up, which has always been something I've loved and been passionate about. And you're going to the Big 12 tournament in this role it's every step along the way has really been a cool, fun experience for me.
Talking about maybe the Big 12 tournament and your relationship with Brett Yormark. He's kind of new into this whole commissioner thing also, but you guys both come from a different background. How have you kind of bounced ideas off of him and maybe vice versa in these new roles for both of you?
Yeah, I really respect him. He's got a media background that's outside of, you know, college athletics, and so he is not afraid to be disruptive and think outside the box. And he's accomplished a significant amount in his career, a lot of success in the NBA specifically, and he's well connected with the media, which is obviously a vital part of college athletics. And so, really enjoyed my conversations. I've had multiple times to sit down with him, both here in Waco for games, but also at Big 12 AD meetings. And I just yearn for the chance to learn from him and bounce ideas off, but also be a partner. You know, we understand our responsibility and our role as a conference member, and we know we have a weight to carry, and we want to make sure we're doing that. And so, you know, he and I are honest, and he's not afraid to say, hey, we need the best version of Baylor for us to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And so I appreciate that charge and very much value our relationship.
What does the best version of Baylor look like to you? Sure.
I certainly think it starts with success. You know, you have to have success in your respective teams, and you know, specifically in the marquee sports right now, the revenue sports, specifically football and men's basketball. You know, we've had challenging seasons. We've completed one in football. We're in the midst of one in men's basketball, and you know, to Scott's credit, this is a victim of his own circumstances in the sense that he set such a high bar that missing the tournament is seen as a significant disappointment, and you know that was never occurred for the most part before Scott came in terms of being overly disappointed about not making the tournament. And so, you know, we need those sports clicking at a high level, and I think we are well on the way to being able to accomplish that. But then I also think an engaged fan base is critical. At the end of the day, media and media rights and conference distributions are based on eyeballs and engaged eyeballs. And you know, we have a large constituency. We need to make sure that they're dialed in and they're participating and they're part of the conversation. They're watching our games on TV. They're driving ratings, attending events, and that comes along with winning. But there's other ways to do that as well.
Yeah, and when you look at kind of maybe the shortcomings of where that fan engagement might have fallen short in the past, where do you see areas of improvement, something that you've really maybe focused on these first 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it in some communications that recently have come out that come from our department. I feel like that in constituencies of college athletics in the realm of it, one of the groups that's been neglected of late has been the fans. You know, they have been somewhat of a forgotten group, and you know, I think that's holistically in the industry. But I would say here specifically, you know, we want to make sure that we rectify that and that we're intentional about communicating the role that they play, but also, you know, showing it with actions and backing that up and demonstrating how we value them. And that's been a lot of the recent news that we've communicated has been intentional about, hey, in short order, here's some things that we've done, and you know, it's hopefully the first of many. We need to be listening. We need to be mindful. There are such nuanced, smaller things that make a big difference in the eyes of a fan. And I think the best thing for me is for the last 8 years as as someone around this program. I've been a fan. So I've been coming to games, bringing my family, bringing my girls. I've experienced it. I know what it's like to pull my ticket up and go through the parking and go through the ticket line and buy concessions in the concession stand. And so I think that experience has been helpful for me to hopefully immediately triage some opportunities that I think we were well positioned to capitalize, to correct, and make the experience better.
And a big, in this sports season, in the spring sports season, a big part of that has been maybe revitalizing Baylor baseball a little bit. I saw most recently, maybe to a smaller effect, the concessions are cheaper, but also on a bigger scale, Magnolia Field at Baylor Ballpark, the largest gift ever given to Baylor baseball. Obviously, you have a relationship with Chip and Joanna Gaines, but what did that mean to you for them to invest in such a large-scale thing like Baylor baseball?
Yeah, it's a typical generosity of the Gaines, not just to give, but to give where there's the greatest need, and not just solely focused on what their intentions are, but where can they have the biggest impact and where's the best opportunity to influence the life of student athletes. And they went where we asked them to go, and baseball is a passion for them, but they knew that was an area that we needed to invest and enhance. And so between that and the heroics of Tice Armstrong on Friday night, with just an insane feat, I think Baylor baseball in the last 2 months approximately has more exposure and I think more momentum and attention than it's had in a really long time, and they deserve it. Mitch and the team, I think, deserve some awareness and some attention because it's had a great history at Baylor, and of late it's been one that just has not gotten a lot of attention. They haven't had a lot of success, and so I think it's a moment for them, and they've certainly capitalized on it. 4 wins to start the season is great, and Mitch will be the first to tell you it's a long season. We got a lot of tough opponents ahead for us, and we'll find out where we're at, but I think there is a moment for Baylor baseball to capture the attention in a way that we haven't seen in a long time from the family, and I'm just excited for the early momentum and very appreciative for the Gaines for their incredible generosity, and for Tice Armstrong for getting up there and taking advantage of the circumstances like he has.
Yeah, the grand day of Tice Armstrong. Did Chip and Joanna tell you at all, like, maybe that their investment, the return on investment, paid off almost immediately on opening day?
Chip's not afraid to say that he might have had something to do with that.
Yeah.
But no, they were there. I mean, that just shows you they were there. They were experiencing it, and I was actually getting ready for the Baylor basketball game in Louisville the next day, and I was with a donor at dinner, and I got a text about the second Grand Slam. I told him. And then the third one hit, and I almost lost it. I mean, they were genuinely concerned. The donors at the dinner were like, "What happened? Is everything okay?" They were nervous because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I cannot believe this." And to have that happen it was not believable. And but don't worry, Chip's not afraid to he thinks that field might have been the reason those balls flew out of there. So
yeah, might have something to do with it. I don't know, but when we think about the spring sports flow and softball in full swing, football spring camp is going to be right around the corner too. How excited are you to get into that space too, and just evaluate where this team's at and where they maybe need to go to compete in the Big 12?
Yeah, that's the great thing about college athletics is that there's always a new season around the corner, and with the absence of like July, there's always something going on year round for the calendar. And so yeah, we're on the tail end of the basketball seasons. We've got baseball and softball getting cranking. You've got the other sports, tennis and golf that are in full effect, and acro and equestrian. But then football will be out here before you know it. They go spring break and they'll start to get after it from a practice standpoint. And the spring in football has evolved as the industry has changed a little bit. The spring games are not as important and monumental as they've been in the past, and it's really a better opportunity to engage with the fans. But certainly excited to watch out the window and see them practice and get down there on the field. I know Coach is very encouraged about the portal and what we've been able to bring, and it's a lot of new bodies that are down there, but I think there's momentum, and I think they've done a nice job. I'm excited about the coaching staff that they have, and I think there's a general momentum that we should all be encouraged by.
Maybe none other than DJ Lagway. Obviously, everybody very excited about what he potentially brings to this Baylor football program, but with that comes the topic of NIL and how much money each program has to go around here at Baylor. How have you navigated that sense, and how have you maybe learned a little bit more about that throughout these first 2 months on the
Sure.
job?
Well, it's a reality. Any school that says it's not a frequent topic of discussion is not being honest, and every program is discussing it in some form or fashion. And I would have loved to help more going to the portal season than I was able to, but from just a timing standpoint, it opened about 3 days, it felt like, after I'd gotten here. And so I think that that the staff did a nice job considering the circumstances. I will say it becomes priority for me as we focus into next year and to building the roster for 27, is it really has to start now. And how do you mobilize to get the infrastructure in place, both to generate the funds and to get the sources of funds, but then also to understand how to navigate the process to ensure that they're deployed within the framework of the rules that are allowable. And so there's a lot of work to do on that front. It largely impacts football, but it goes far beyond football. It really has an impact across all sports because those opportunities exist for all student athletes. And so that is, as I kind of turn the page for me personally, between now and August, that really becomes at the forefront for what I'll do with my time.
And as we look towards like maybe the off season of basketball, that posed some issues, I think, towards roster reconstruction for Scott Drew, and ultimately some things don't go Baylor men's basketball's way, and now we're looking at that kind of result right now. How do you balance between different sports, kind of dispersing that NIL throughout? Because obviously that doesn't affect football, but men's basketball and women's basketball also have a little bit of a say with that share.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, there's internal NIL, there's external NIL, and there's, been a lot of discussion about how internal NIL is largely carved up, and most schools have tried to follow the pattern of what the revenue has been earned by sport in the TV equation, and ultimately then using that to kind of set up the way that it's distributed from a model standpoint. And Baylor's been pretty similar to that. And so really the work that has to be done at this point, because that's that we're fully funding that, it's maxed, and that model's been pretty well established, and so there's not much work to be done on that. Certainly they need to make sure that those funds are wisely stewarded. But I would say the real bulk of the work comes from external NIL, and again, that it largely impacts those sports that in a percentage-wise in a similar way to how the internal dollars are allocated. But there's opportunities, and we need to help facilitate opportunities for all sports. And in one sport where it wouldn't maybe move the needle in terms of a dollar amount, you put that to a smaller Olympic sport, and it can make all the difference in the world. And so it is a balance. It is a juggling act. I think the good news is that there's companies and individuals that have oftentimes a passion for a specific sport or a student athlete that drives them, and we have to meet them where they're at and make sure that we've got the infrastructure in place to allow for that. But it is a juggling act to navigate. How do you balance that amongst all the 18 sports?
Yeah, and when you look at where Baylor's at in terms of these sports, a lot of them are right there. It's kind of just about getting over that hump. How have you talked to maybe some of these coaches about doing that, and what role do you think you can play in helping them get over that hump?
Yeah, I think we need to be honest that we will never, and we never have been at Baylor, been at the absolute top of the food chain in terms of resources. Now, we won't ever be at the bottom. We have a committed university, have a committed alumni and donor base that will ensure us to be amply resourced. But if it's always just going to be about who can buy the biggest team and buy the most talent, we're not going to be the institution for that. So I think we have a dual responsibility to maximize our resources to give us the greatest chance to be successful. But then it really comes down to stewardship and ensuring that those dollars are put to great usage. And I think we're ultimately seeing that across college athletics. And I think you can look at Indiana, probably not the largest NIL budget that was in existence in college football, but they had an exceptional program and a system and a coach that was ultimately able to ensure that it was maximized, and they had a historic season. And so I think that's a great testament for everyone across the board. Is it's not going to always be the largest amount. It's going to be who uses what they have in the wisest way. And I think we're seeing plenty of examples out there. Certainly opportunities where we can get better, but I think we've got good examples to build on in every one of our programs where it has been effectively valued, and we've gone out and found those players that were great fits for us that could fit within the frameworks of what we had to offer, and that the winners moving forward in this new era are going to be the ones that are consistently doing that. You're going to have that as the measuring stick moving forward, is who's really got the system in place to ensure that they're getting the highest value from their respective resources that they have to work with.
And as you've been trying to do for the last 2 months, how have you worked with President Livingstone just to make sure that that is the goal moving forward, and how has she benefited you throughout these 2 months and then obviously in the future?
Well, two-part. I think President is highly respected in the collegiate sports spectrum. I sat in Big 12 AD meetings last week with all the presidents from the universities, and President Livingstone just has a command and a trust amongst that room. When she speaks, there's a high level of respect and attention paid to what she has to offer, both from her personal experiences, but just from the leadership that she's had. So I'd say a tremendous asset and someone who is very supportive for college athletics. She is a huge advocate, both in her own personal experiences, but here at Baylor. And the university has been consistent about their commitment in their investment in the athletic program because they believe what it means for the rest of the university. And that's never been up for debate, and it continues to be strong and unwavering for us as a department. And so I think what we have to be mindful of is we need to deliver a return on that investment. And they see athletics as a front porch. I think we talked about, Tice Armstrong from baseball, the media value earned from his heroics on Friday night, it's difficult to put a number on. It was everywhere. It was every form of media. It was every viral,
Sports Center top 10.
Sports Center, non-sports related entities were covering it. And people that probably never heard about Baylor because of the first baseman that hit 3 grand slams in one game. And so when it's done well, it is a tremendous investment. And so how do we continue to position ourselves? And certainly winning is the biggest factor in that equation. But there's other ways that we ensure that we can deliver investment return. And that's the job I have, because I really see the president and the university as one of our largest stakeholders. And we need to ensure that they are getting their return for what they've committed to our university. And we have been very blessed with a university that's committed to us, and now it's time to do our part.
Going hand in hand with that is fan engagement and making sure that the return on investment, those wins are going to those fans as well. What are you looking forward to? What should fans look forward to in the coming months, in the next sports season, about just attending these Baylor games, and what do you expect to see out of Baylor athletics?
I mean, from an athletic department standpoint, I've told our coaches, you got to deliver results on the field. Winning cures a lot, and losing makes everything look bad. So that's first and foremost. But from our perspective, how can we ensure that everything that goes around the game is the best we can possibly offer? And what are the points of friction that are creating static and headaches for our fans, and how do we eliminate those? And I think that words really in this conversation don't mean a whole lot. Like, go show me how you're going to value me is really important. And so we're certainly rolling out some initiatives that we have right now, but I just met with our team in this room today and talked to them on the external side, and I said, hey, when we've made this declaration about what we're going to be about, we now have kind of put a target on our backs where if we don't deliver on that, we're going to be even more highlighted for failing to maintain a promise. Not just, hey, we dropped the ball as a brand, but we said this was a priority and we dropped the ball. So, but I welcome that. I welcome the standard and the expectation because we want our fans to expect to have a good time and a rewarding experience when they attend our games. And it isn't easy to accomplish that, but I'm up for the challenge, and I think our team is as well.
I think I speak for pretty much all of Waco in saying we're excited to see what the spring season and then also what football season holds come the fall. So, Doug, thank you so much for taking some time and joining us, and we'll see what the next few months hold. Reporting here in Waco for Fox 44 Sports, I'm Parker Rehm with AD Doug McNamee.